Hello everyone, my name is Samantha and this is my very first YouTube video, and today we'll be covering a book review. And the book today, or for this video, will be for The Voice of Your Soul by Lain Garcia Calvo. And this author is Spanish, so the book is originally in Spanish, but it was gifted to me with the English translation. Before I get started on the overall book review, this book is just about, well, it's called The Principles of the Metaphysical Quantum World to Achieve What You Want in the Physical Material World. So it's definitely honing in on carrying the message to listen to the inner whisperings and create peace and abundance in your life. So, not to say that this is more of a disclaimer, but definitely more so of those who are believers in the metaphysical world, those who believe in a God, in the universe, in the super intelligence, a higher being, and having that faith and conviction in that, and how that can produce more of the manifestations that you want in the real world. So this book goes into the 7 principles, or the 7 hermetic principles, and it's reiterating or describing the foundational laws of the universe. And the first one is mentalism. That is all in the mind. Again, this goes into the sections about victimhood and what that looks like, and our own personal power and pretty much our own default system into our thought process, and how that thought process can then express itself into more of the physicality of things with words and actions and then results. Correspondence is going to as it is above, meaning the quantum world, the spiritual world, and below, it reflects to what's considered below, or the visible world, or the material physical world. And then it goes into vibration, that nothing rests, everything operates on a frequency no matter where that stands on the spectrum. And then polarity, my personal favorite, because it's I guess the law that was the most new to me. Change or mindset shift into this perspective, and that opposites operate on, or opposites are identical in degree. And that's where I say in that love and fear, and that pretty much it's a choice. They operate on the same spectrum. Rhythm, and having that pendulum swing, and where I talk about excessive potentials and invoke what the exact opposite of what we want. There's cause and effect, in which there's no such thing as no chance, that everything does have a ripple effect. And then gender, having that balance of the masculine and femininity of it all. And so overall, that these principles do govern the reality, consciousness, and energy. Well, this book definitely has a formula. So the formula talks about beliefs and how that translates into more the physicality of our words, our thoughts, our emotions, actions, and then eventually leading to results. And what I really want to focus on is how to attract what you want. And I know this is a very hot topic, I guess you can say, given that manifestation, spirituality has definitely become more of a topic, and just general self-care and the avenues that people can go about that. But I hope that I can break this down in a practical way and that you learn something from this. So let's get started. Number 1 is to decide what you want and give it clarity. To do this, you do need to have, I would say, just that quiet time. And that quiet time rarely ever exists. You need to actually be quiet with your thoughts. I would say find yourself a stretch of time with low stimulation, and actually be in tune with your thoughts. What thoughts arise? What emotions arise? What do you actually think that you can start making a change in now? Or not even a change, but just being aware of where you believe your faults are, what things you actually want to work on, and then to produce the change. But if you are questioning yourself what it is that you want, we have a magical thing called free will. And what this looks like is just ask, pray on it, write it down, You can refer to a trusted peer, mentor, friend, family member, and ask. If I'm being honest, I think it's more important if we kind of check in with ourselves rather than trying to seek more of the reassurance or asking other people, because they can have their own implicit biases and overall their perception of you. So I would say just take that time to have it be a more reflective moment for yourself and ask, write it down. And with this, I would say to superimpose that would to cultivate the self esteem and the personal power that we each carry. I feel like with anything, we can get so easily discouraged, and we are so self critical of ourselves. Because we get easily attuned to the comparison game or the social media lifestyle, which, obviously isn't realistic. So it's about knowing that you are literally special and you are one of a kind, and just, I guess, really believing that, having conviction in that you are here for a purpose. And this purpose is ever changing, ever evolving. It's not just one thing, it could be cultivated into a plethora of things. And just to be mindful of that, what you concentrate on expands. So if you're in a situation where you always feel like you're stuck in the rut, you're blaming other people, you are always complaining, things are never going your way, you're constantly hitting roadblocks, it's, again, if you are a believer in the law of attraction or the universal laws, then carry on with this mindset. The law of the universe is going to reiterate all the more reasons to complain more, to blame other people more, to find yourself in more roadblocks, in chaos, in really just the misery of it all or the mediocrity of it all. So, what I've also learned in this book is that the good is actually the default, and the hate, the fear was a choice. And you can easily think that, wow, but it's a choice, but it's so exposed, it's so normal. But really, it's the power to just choose that, instead of letting so much get to you, having that detachment, having that shift perspective in that, okay, instead of this is happening to me, it's happening for me. What can I learn from this? And that's, like, I feel like the very first step into transforming that mindset into a positive one. And what can you learn from it? What's something that you can catalyze and become more transformative for you? And when you decide what you want and you have a little bit more of that clarity, you have to visualize it as if you already have it. So embody that, personify it, make it real. Our brain doesn't know the difference between, to an extent, what the reality and what a fantasy is. So if we pretty much visualize ourselves in real time while manifesting, but at the same time act on it in real life, it'll just reiterate all the more, create neural connections or neural changes in our brain to accept that, oh, this is our new reality. And you will see that everything else starts to form in line. You would eventually see new opportunities, new people, new connections, and this is pretty much just a match or an alignment that you are heading in the right direction. It's like a little bit of that reassurance. Once, then this is going to sound funny, because step 2 is to give up the objective. And you're just like, wait, step 1 was just to know the objective and to have clarity. Now I have to give it up. So step 2 is really about that detachment that I was talking about earlier. So you know what you want, you have the clarity, and this is the key. So you give up on the how. Just know what the clarity is and give up on the how. When we have a new goal in mind, or when we want to manifest something, we definitely get so fixated on, no, like this, I want this as my reality, and we become almost self-obsessed. But again, if we become obsessed, now that's operating in the fear of losing it. You have to detach and have conviction that it will work out, and that it will work out in divine right timing. And this goes into another principle that the book reiterates, and it talks about cycling and generation. So you have a time where you're just bursting of energy and you're so productive. There's other times where you're just completely in the hibernation mode, where it's just like rest and digest phase. And I think it's very important that you have to force it so much. It'll come in divine right timing. And I think the waiting is very important because it just seeds for the person that you are meant to become for that transformation. And it's just molding you into that person that you are coming out on the other side. And I feel like when it comes to manifestation, especially as a person with me who is very much regimented, disciplined, like when I'm doing something, I like to stick with it, but it's very important to also not force it. That when you are manifesting, it shouldn't feel like a chore or about obligation. Because again, if you are way too much forcing it, this could invoke what is called an excessive potential, and it places too much too much of a high degree on a set goal. And you'd think that, with manifesting, you're heading in, you are at least visualizing yourself in the right direction. But if we place too much of a high degree on it, it actually reverts or diverts in the opposite. All that you didn't want to happen ends up happening. There's like extreme delays, there's mishaps, there's hiccups, there's roadblocks. So again, it's having that detachment in that no matter, think of it this way, it's that whether I do this or not, I will be okay. And that's the reality check, or at least the big awareness that you're going to have is that, regardless, it may not happen right now, but I'm okay without it, and I'm not solely dependent on this, and it's not feeding off the base of fear and that, like, I need this, I have to have it because I don't have X, Y, and Z, because it just overall results into more friction, more tension, again, so low vibration. So overall, what we have to do is reduce the degree of importance so we don't alter the law of balance. I guess another personal insight for me, that what I've learned is that the beauty and the essence and the strength that comes from manifestation is in the tranquility and in trust. And that's something that, again, if you have to have the full conviction and the belief system that this will work, or that these laws of the universe are applicable, are real. Otherwise, they won't work. So as long as you apply the principles and that unshakable belief, then you're destined to achieve what you want in the real life. And so then step 3 is to take massive intuitive action. So action is the bridge between what is the invisible and what is visible. And it's very easy to say, oh, I'm going to wait once I complete this task, or once I complete this task. Overall, I just want to say that time doesn't wait for us. There's no perfect moment. When you really need to take action is when you hear that quiet whisper. And that quiet whisper is sometimes not even sometimes, it's pretty hard to hear because our mind is so loud and tries to justify and rationalize everything. And then it goes into the series of victimhood, and then it feeds into the implicit biases. Our mind is so loud, but when we actually find that, again, that stretch of just unstimulated time, or that's what our soul is telling us to do, and it's just reiterating, like, no, this is what you're meant to do, this is what your nature is, this is your calling, this is your purpose, your passion, this is what you're meant to do, or that be for yourself or to share with the world. And whether that's like an interest or a skill or something that the world needs, but this is meant for you. And it's that spark, it's a whisper, and it's what's ultimately going to fill your cup. And overall, this should be a message that should give you inspiration, it should give you peace, it should give you happiness. And you can easily say, like, oh, well, I'm feeling inspired. How do I know if it's coming from the mind or from the soul? And like I said, from the mind, it's very loud in comparison. It can strike distress, it can invoke chaos. It's not working, it's consistently failing. And I guess that's a way to reiterate, like, okay, am I rationalizing? Am I justifying too much? Is this ultimately what I want to do, or am I doing this for the sake of what's trendy, or the acceptance of others, without really being more intentional if it's something that invokes you truly? So you may ask, regardless of what phase you're in, and wherever you feel like you're in your life, even if we're not at our best mental, physical, emotional state, just do it anyway. The present state is what we can have most control of. If we dwell on our past, that's not going to change anything. And if anything, just dwelling on our past is just going to reiterate probably more patterns of our future and a negative cycle. And if we keep leaving things into the future, that's all they're ever going to be, plans for the future. So what we have most control of and what we can be most gracious for is now, and the most precious time now is in the present. So just do it now, do it anyway, do it tired. But I think once you get that momentum going, that's where that dopamine's going to start to strike, and then that's where you're going to just have that cycling pattern of, oh, like, I actually can do this. And you realize that more painful to keep procrastinating it than actually just doing that said action. And you realize, like, wow, that was much easier than I thought. And overall, this is easier said than done, right? Because we operate in a world that is in very much high demand, instant gratification. And we definitely operate on what is urgent rather than important. So you may ask, what's the difference? Well, quick side note, this definitely goes into this video that I watched with the collaboration with Chris Williamson and the Diary of a CEO podcast on the YouTube channel. And so he definitely talks about delineating what's urgent versus what's important. Urgent, think of bills, work, chores, even fast food. And this is called the Niagara syndrome, in which we're making decisions from immediacy, and that tends to be the root of our problems, that we're addressing all that's, incoming at face value, rather than taking a step back and realizing, okay, even if I have completed X, Y, and Z based on everything that's kind of coming at me so quick, why do I feel like I have this void? Why do I still not feel like my cup is filled? And that's because we're not taking care of what's important. And that's pretty much where you come in, or the personal work comes in. And that's important. What is most important to you? And what do you feel like you are lacking, or what you need more awareness of, or what you want to really make a difference in? And it's sometimes the simplest of things that are overlooked, that is something that we should really be working on. We tend to fixate on, like, the most complicated things and think that's what's going to give us all the most satisfaction and resolvement of our issues. And sometimes, or most of the times, that's not the case. And it can just be that, so to say, that 1 degree method of, if it's a goal, or if you're trying to manifest like a healthier lifestyle, what does that look like? It's to wake up like 10 minutes earlier so you can stretch or read. And you realize that the sum of all those small things easily will make your life better in the long run. And it's definitely more tangible, it's more sustainable if we make that 1 degree method each and every day, because then you notice, well, if I'm implementing this one change by the month, look how far I've made, let alone a whole year. And it'll just be more of a mold into creating this lifestyle for you. Half the battle is our own limiting beliefs and our own conditions. And we can't even blame ourselves. Most of the time it's just what other people have chosen for us while we're still growing up, while we're still like so vulnerable and exposed. We're easily molded into these characteristics, these traits, this personality, and you realize that you just accept it without you even realizing. But that's not true, and you can change this self-image of yourself. Not to say that just manifesting and creating your own life is the easiest of thing. It's not. It's a topic because there's so much inner work that needs to be involved, and a lot of letting go, a lot of empowerment that comes from this. When we are ultimately deciding better for our lives, it can be scary. Our brain doesn't like change. Our brain doesn't operate on change. It operates on detecting threats and knowing our fears. It's like our own brain working against us. And, even though like maybe our soul and that intuition is leading us to where we want to be, our mind can really lead us astray because it's so focused on operating on detecting what's fear and what is safe and trying to protect us in this safe bubble. But our brain also filters on whatever reality is, and that's a whole other section, but it definitely works against our favor in that, based on our limiting beliefs and our conditions and pretty much what we truly think ourselves is subconsciously, it reiterates how hard it can be to really impose and invoke that change that we want to see for ourselves. So this can be, I don't know if I want to say risky, but it can be painful, it can be hard, it can be terrifying for people. But that inner voice is telling you to do it anyway. And honestly, you may even lose some people in the process because they themselves, they might not understand this transformative process that you're enduring, and they may even carry some of their own judgments. And nonetheless, when you are working on yourself and when you are on the other side, you are just all the more aligning and connecting with those like-minded people. And the voice of your soul being that inner, that calm intuition, that higher being or that higher self. And that's going to ultimately guide us towards our path, towards our best self, essentially, and operate in love and compassion, and ultimately producing profound life experiences. And that pretty much wraps up the book review and the read. I feel like I can go way more depth into just my other personal highlights, other action items, depending on that said law that the author goes into. But I feel like this was really transformative and just like overall just meaningful, especially to read this book at the top of the year, and kind of sets the standard for no, I actually have the power to choose what I want. Even though I was exposed to the laws of attraction or universal laws, I never really applied it because I didn't fully understand the principles, and I never really took a deep dive what that meant. So now, knowing these principles, like, I can actually apply the methods. It kind of gives me all the more motivation and encouragement to continue the path that I'm on, and to not let, again, my own brewing insecurities or fears take the wheel. And it's just like, no, I'm in the driver's seat this time and I'm choosing what I want. but but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I know I have, and I definitely look forward to doing more of these. So thank you all for watching. Until next time. Sorry. Okay. So annoyed with me.